be here again. I was here for the very first Texylvania a couple of years ago, and the event's really grown. It's wonderful to see so many people here, to see so many different things out in the demo area to have heard about. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to join you for the hackathon this weekend. And Cristiano, awesome demo and awesome talk as usual. I hope you all learned a lot about JavaScript, because I need to learn a lot more about JavaScript. So yes, I am a developer advocate of Twitter, and I have been, in fact, the talk I gave here 2 years ago was my first speaking gig for Twitter. And when I was here, I spoke about Twitter and the Internet of Things, and how Twitter can be, or represent, the pulse of the planet, what's happening in the world. And obviously I'm on Twitter, that's my Twitter handle. Some of you may want to tweet to me. But before I speak about Fabric, I'm also very aware, having come here for the second time and having visited a number of other countries around Europe now, that Twitter's popularity is different in different places. So let me talk very briefly about the fact that Twitter is this kind of live connection to culture for many people. Whether it is your main live connection to culture may differ. But especially if you're a startup that wants to get your message out about your technology, then it's a very good place to be out and building your network. I got my current job at Twitter by being on Twitter, by having a reputation and letting people see what I was doing around open source and going to hackathons and a lot of the other things that Cristiano and I both geek out about over in London. And it really represents a lot of different voices. A lot of different things have happened this year already. We're not halfway through the year yet. Of course, we had the issue with the FBI wanting to get into an iPhone, and some smart aleck said, well, you know, I don't know if you guys remember a couple of years ago when YouTube released an album and forced it onto everybody's iPhones. There was this joke that you know, the FBI maybe shouldn't bother employing a hacking firm, they should just ask YouTube how to get in there. Of course, we don't know what's going to come next. I'm kind of hoping that this is not going to come next. But, you know, who knows? Who can predict what's coming? And coming closer to home, I was wondering whether I should talk about this, because I'm aware of some controversy around this year's contest. But just very briefly to touch on the Eurovision Song Contest, apologies to those of you who feel in any way aggrieved by this year's contest. I feel aggrieved every year. One, that it exists, and secondly, that Britain even bothers taking part. But huge new record for number of tweets sent a couple of weekends ago. This is significant. The conversation is still growing, and people are excited about this stuff. In fact, we released an analysis showing that not only was a volume of tweets over the course of the event reached, but actually some really interesting peaks of tweets per minute were reached during the event. So when the winners were announced, somewhat controversially as well, I believe, we reached a new peak of tweets per minute for that event. And finally, just while I talk about Twitter versus technology, or rather than talking about the Fabric platform, this year is a big one for the platform because it's been around just over 10 years. Jack, our co-founder and CEO, sent the first tweet 21st of March 2006. And the platform's come a long way since then. You know, this is the aggregated number of retweets and likes this tweet's had over the course of 10 years. And that may not seem like a very large number, but of course you have to go all the way back in history to find that tweet now. We see increasing numbers of people, from heads of state to business people to technologists to brands and individuals on the platform, and that is very exciting to me. As a sociologist, my background and my degree is actually in history, and I'm very excited by the power of this platform to connect people. So, with that, let's talk about our mobile platform. So, we have this app called Twitter. It's probably on many of your phones, if not all of them. I'm sure it isn't on all of them. But it started off as this mobile messaging service that was based on SMS. And we actually now have 3 apps, and they're all kind of in that same space of live. So we have Vine, which lets you record and share short-form videos. And then we have an exciting app that's been around just over a year now called Periscope, which lets you live broadcast from anywhere in the world. The founder of Periscope, Kayvon, talks about it as a teleportation device. It's not about just trying to find out what someone's up to. It actually lets you teleport your way into that place. And as Simon was talking about earlier, it's really quite powerful when you can have that visual experience, that sense of being there with someone. And in fact, in the last couple of months, we've released updates where you can now broadcast live from your Phantom 4 drone and some other cool stuff. So we've done some interesting things with mobile over the course of 10 years. And Fabric is our mobile application development platform. So I'm going to guess that quite a few of you may not have heard of it. So let me talk about it briefly. Think of it as kind of a utility belt for building mobile apps on iOS and Android. It's looking to give you a set of common building blocks that you're going to often need when you're building your apps and give you a great starting point for building those apps out. We want to help you make your apps more reliable and stable, help you to grow them, understand where your users are and the key metrics you need to know, and hopefully, if you're interested, to integrate Twitter into those apps as well. So very briefly, some numbers, because I know that not everyone's excited about numbers. Many of you would much rather see some more code. We launched this 2 years ago in 2014, in October, in San Francisco. It grew remarkably over the first year to being installed on 1 billion devices. And we just announced that it's actually now on 2 billion devices. So this is an SDK that's sitting in the background of a bunch of apps, and that's on 2 billion devices around the world now. What does it contain? Well, it contains 5 pieces of functionality: Crashlytics, Answers, Digits, Mopub, and TwitterKit. And I'm not going to talk about all of these in detail, but I'll give you a quick overview of what they all are. Crashlytics helps you deal with your crash reporting. Click, there we go. Crash reporting, understanding where crashes are occurring as you release apps to the App Store, and also helps you to get beta testers. Answers helps you get real-time analytics, literally how many people are using your app right now, where they are, what their interests are, how you can reach more of those kind of people. Digits is a very interesting mobile phone-based sign-up product. Mopub is an advertising product I'm not going to talk about today. And TwitterKit lets you add tweets into your apps because it's a great source of content, and it lets you send tweets from your apps. It's pretty simple from that perspective. But if you're a mobile app developer, you're probably thinking, okay, well, I've got a crash reporting solution, I'm not interested in yours. A couple of those things sound slightly interesting, and hey, I'm in Romania and we don't tweet, so I'm not really interested in the Twitter bit. But there's a whole bunch of other things that we know that you probably have to deal with as an app developer. And we can cover some of them with our functionality, but we can partner with other companies that do great things for things like A/B testing, publish and subscribe, payments, all the other kinds of things that you might want to put in your app. So since we launched 2 years ago, we've partnered with a bunch of other companies, and Fabric now looks like this. And it's kind of a store to come and get those pieces of function for your apps and accelerate where you're going, and especially if you're starting from nothing, hopefully help you get going really quickly. And when I say it helps you get going really quickly, this is how you would integrate Stripe payments into an app using Fabric, for example. You would open our app, you would say, I want to add Stripe. You would say, okay, let's get the code for doing that, without having to go off to Stripe's website, and it's going to give you the basics and help you get going really, really quickly. So all of the services are focused on simplicity, helping you get up and running really fast, and getting your app to market much more quickly. I'm going to really briefly run through the main chunks of function in the Twitter-provided kits, so that you get a sense of the kind of things you can do, and the kind of areas where we might be able to help you. Starting off with Crashlytics, because you've probably seen, when you've gone to the App Store or the Play Store, those infamous one-star reviews where people actually wanted to give a negative rating because the app's so bad or just has had stability issues. And as a developer, it's really difficult for you to reach those users and find out what the problem was. Apps crash all the time. Apps have been crashing on my phone this morning. It's annoying, but the most important thing is for you as a developer to fix those problems quickly to repair the relationship with the developer. And if you're a startup and you're just launching something new, then it's quite likely, as a new product, that you're going to have a lot of things that you haven't anticipated happening in your app, and you'd like to get a sense of what those are and who's hitting them. Of course, all of this is aimed at getting you into that top 100 list. So Crashlytics itself, the platform, runs across iOS and Android, and it also supports macOS and tvOS, and it processes a lot of crashes. That's a big number. That's a lot of potentially unhappy users, depending on the nature of the crash. It's also, I mentioned the numbers earlier, but it's also on a lot of Android devices. So there are, let's say, 1.4 billion, I guess Google probably updated that at I/O last week, Android devices out there, and at the time that that number was around, Crashlytics was on a large number of those as well. So that's all very well, but actually you're here to talk about games. Well, originally, Crashlytics didn't support Unity, but in the last 6 months we've shipped support for Unity as well. So if you're building those games in Unity, you can get all of this functionality that goes down into the Unity runtime and gives you all back that rich information about what might be going on. Okay, dashing on, hopefully, there we go. Answers. Answers is a real-time analytics service. It gives you these dashboards, and it also will send you a daily email telling you how your app is performing, which is really great if you're a product manager, because you will get a great daily snapshot of what's going on. It is opinionated. We do not want to give you every single bit of information that's going to drown you in data. We want to give you a snapshot view of who's using your app, where they are, how many new active users you've got, and importantly, how many crash-free sessions you've had, so that you can prioritize in your daily stand-up what you're going to need to fix today. And we also have the ability for you to set options to figure out who's using particular functions in your app, how many people are converting from putting a product in their cart to actually purchasing that product. Again, numbers. This is an incredibly popular tool, and it analyzes a massive amount of data. One of the things we've added in the last 6 months, added value for you as users, it comes for free, all of this is free by the way, is the ability to figure out where your audience is and who they are. And we do this by aggregating this information with anonymized Twitter information about where the Twitter audience is. So you're going to get the demographic breakdown, key interests of your audience, and find out exactly what's going on with your app and where you might want to promote it more, for example. Digits is really interesting. Digits is a phone number-based sign-in solution. So in certain geographies, my team's just done an event in Africa, which is very mobile first. People may not even have an email account, because they haven't started on the web or with email. You've probably seen on apps like WhatsApp, which I've seen is very popular here as well, that you're using your phone number as your primary identity. But what if we could provide that for you securely and for free, simple way to log into your apps, prevent those users from getting spam and junk because it's going through a service provided by Twitter, and then helping you through your phone book find where your friends are. So this is what this looks like, and this is done with a couple of lines of code you'll see in a moment. But you type in a number, this is a US number, obviously, on an iPhone, and you're going to get back an SMS. I'm sure many of you are familiar with this kind of a flow. But because Twitter started as an SMS-based service, we're already in over 200 countries with SMS providers where we have relationships and we can provide that infrastructure. So we're able to share that infrastructure with you at no cost. And of course, if you want to make it themed and look and feel like your app and your brand, you can do that really simply, and this is the kind of amount of code you need to get going. We also provide email verification. These are relatively new updates, and we provide voice fallback. So if the SMS doesn't go through for any reason, it's been tried a couple of times, we can actually call the user and do a voice verification. So it's available in a huge number of countries and localized in a whole bunch of languages. It's extremely popular if you're growing your app in geographies such as India, Brazil, and, as I mentioned, Sub-Saharan Africa. So finally, Twitter, because that's kind of where I work and what I get excited about. And we feel as a company very strongly about this idea of freedom of expression, giving everybody the opportunity to express themselves. And these kinds of tweets from politicians, from brand leaders, get embedded all over the web every day. You've probably opened a couple of news sites today already and seen tweets embedded as part of the story. So as part of that, we want to make sure we work very well with the open web, and we focus very hard on our performance. And we've shrunk our JavaScript for doing that, if you're including tweets on your sites, by over 40%. But the cool thing about Fabric is that you can bring those real-time conversations and that content into your apps very, very easily, with just a couple of lines of code on iOS and Android. So, for example, you could have an embedded tweet inside a news story, you can tweet from inside the app, and you can sign in with Twitter. The very last thing I want to talk about, because I'm very excited about it, both from an open source perspective and from a developer productivity perspective, is something called Fastlane. Has anybody here heard of Fastlane? Is that something that a number of you are familiar with? Couple of hands. So Fastlane was originally an iOS project, an open source tool invented by a gentleman called Felix Kraus from Austria. Very, very smart young gentleman. And he was building this thing out to make it easier for the lives of iOS developers. Because I expect if you have done any iOS development, you've seen that magical screen when you're doing your provisioning profiles in Xcode, which says, oh, there was a problem, would you like me to fix it? And you're looking at it and thinking, if I click that thing that says fix my issue, you're not going to fix my issue, so I'm just going to give up now. So Felix was building this great tool to improve developers' lives on iOS, and it's part of Fabric now. So what if you want to automate all your screenshots? You're about to release your new Android app to the Play Store, but you support 10 languages, and you need to have 4 different screenshots for each, and you're going to get your intern to make a load of screenshots. That's going to be a pretty dull afternoon. So what if we could plug all of this stuff into the emulator on our test suites? So here's an iOS example, just very, very briefly, to show you what this sort of thing looks like, except it's cut off the edges of my screen. I've run a single command, and it's now, in theory, there we go, driving the iOS simulator, I should say, to take a lot of screenshots in the background. And once it's done that, it's going to deliver all of that in an HTML report for me to check out. So it's going to cut down my number of clicks on the App Store to just a single command to actually do all of those screenshots and submit it for me. There's a whole bunch of tools inside Fastlane. It's free to download, regardless of whether you use Fabric. If you're an Android or iOS developer, I really strongly recommend you check it out. So, Fabric is free, it's in lots of these apps. I would love to talk to you more about it. I'm here for the rest of today. And thanks, I look forward to seeing your tweets and questions. Cheers.
Thank you very much. That was great. And I can say from being one of the developers who uses that, I mean, we especially use Crunchlytics very heavily since the early days. So thank you for making all of that free.
Thanks.
So, while we get our next panel set up and get the members here, I'll have like one final question to you. So this is like, I mean, what's in it for Twitter, right?
Yeah.
Because you're putting all of that like for free out there, and like you're sending SMSs. Are you collecting like user data and then like messaging them, or what's the?
That's a great question, Philip. Yeah. So, what's in it for Twitter? Well, we want to provide. We use these tools ourselves. We acquired Crunchlytics because we use it every day in our own tools. Much the same with Amazon build a web services off the back of their store, and they now share that with other people. Yes, they make money from that. So there's 2 elements to that. There's MoPub, which is an advertising exchange, which if you choose to use, all of this is a la carte, you choose which bits you want. Then there's revenue share going on there. And then, well, obviously we'd love you to use tweets inside your apps. So if we can provide you with great developer tools that make your lives easier, make our lives easier, and you choose to use Twitter more in your apps, then that's wonderful. Other than that,
so you're not taking any user data from that?
So we understand who Twitter users are if you've signed in with Twitter. We understand who Digits users are if you've signed in with Digits, but there is no commingling of data between them. I mentioned that we use Twitter demographic information to predict who's using answers, But there's, again, every one of those kits has got its own privacy policy, and we care very deeply, even though it's a public network, we care very deeply about user privacy.
Okay, thank you so much, Andy. I appreciate it.